Hello and welcome to this Fane online event. My name is Leone Ross. I'm a fiction writer, editor and educator raised in Jamaica and living in London. And I'm delighted to be in the company of Sir Ben Okri to talk about his latest and, by my count, his 30th book, Tiger Work, which is published by Head of Zeus, and you can see it here. Pretty. Jamaican novelist and fellow Booker Prize winner Marlon James says that in Tiger Work, Okri stares down a real horror and without blinking or flinching produces a work of beauty, grace, and uncommon power. The collection includes poetry, short stories for adults and children, parables, an essay, a letter addressed to the earth, and an interview, gathering together all Okri's work on climate change and environmental activism. Sir Ben Okri was born in Minna, Nigeria. His childhood was divided between Nigeria, where he saw firsthand the consequences of war, and London. He has won many prizes for his fiction, including the Booker Prize, and is an acclaimed poet, essayist, short story writer, anthologist, screenwriter, and playwright. From former US President Clinton's admiration to TV show American Dad, from inspiring the song Street Spirit by Radiohead to a knighthood, Okri's reach is global and multifaceted. Hello, Ben. It's good to meet you.
Leone, it's a real pleasure. How are you today?
I'm okay. I'm just fine. All the better for seeing you. Can I start off with one question I've been dying to ask you, which is this. In some ways, it's a kind of simple question. Since 2021, it seems you've begun your books with a kind of exhortation to the reader. At the beginning of the book, you've written, read slowly. And I'd love you to tell me a little bit more about that decision, why you've made it, and particularly how read slowly might frame this new book, Tiger Work.
Well, Leone, well, thank you for noticing that. The exhortation, as you call it, actually began with a book of mine called The Age of Magic, which was published in 2014. It was at the time, it was a risky and tentative thing to do. And I think it came out really from my experience of reading and my experience of writing. I think it first of all reflected a change in the way that that I've been writing. I'd always written for people to read slowly, because I write carefully and I write in a layered kind of way. If you read me in a great hurry, you'd miss most of what I'm doing. And I'd noticed it over the years that people tended to do that. They read too quickly. They don't get half of what I'm doing, or even a third of it. I talk to them about it, and they're surprised that there are things in there that I'd carefully planted. And I began to wonder why this was. And I began to examine the whole process of reading, the way in which we read books. And I've come to realize that there's certain books that you can read in certain ways. Obviously, nobody would read poetry very fast. You can't read poetry fast. It slows you down by the way in which it's arranged on the page, by its meter, sometimes by the difficulty of its language. But really good prose too cannot be read fast. And it was Ezra Pound who said at some point, he said that, poetry has to be at least as good as prose. And I think he was thinking of writers like Flaubert. He was thinking about the writers who had changed the nature of prose writing so that it was no longer just merely descriptive, but it was also in itself a very highly accomplished art form, where the prose itself was doing things that you only associate with poetry. After Flaubert, prose writing changed for serious writers. You could no longer write a sentence lazily, and I was concerned about the way I was being read, and I wanted to help people. And I only just managed to get the courage up in that book, The Age of Magic, to have that hint, read slowly. And the other thing, Leone, that I really must say is that bad books read slowly become infinitely worse.
I love that.
Good books read slowly actually get better. Yeah. Great books read slowly become a truly altering life experience. The thing about reading slowly is that you actually enter into not just the world of the words and the book, you enter into the world of the writer's mind. It's the most intimate, the most powerful way to actually really enjoy a text. And since I've been doing that, I think my readers have found the right relationship with my words and with my language.
And it felt like a slightly vulnerable thing to do, because I've said exhortation, but for you, you've used the word hint. It's a request rather than a command. It's an encouragement, a hope.
It's a suggestion. It's a help. I'm trying to help.
Yeah.
You read it too fast and you think, what's going on here? You read it slow and you see how everything is really carefully constructed and connected and very logical. There's no what they call magical realism. It gives the impression that you've made sudden irrational leaps and so on. But actually, in everything I write, it's very, very carefully linked. And because I was going to be a mathematician and a physicist, so I've got a very logical mind, and I brought that.
Yes, you have the mind of a scientist. Yeah,
I brought the mind of a scientist to literature. Absolutely.
Yeah. I can relate to this. I remember a couple of years ago when I published a novel, someone I didn't know just contacted me on the internet and said, "How should I read this book?" And no one had ever asked that of me before.
Yes. Absolutely.
And funnily, and this is true, but it's an interesting coincidence. What popped out of me was, could you read it slowly?
Yeah.
I've decided on every word. Every word is there for a reason and links with another. So if you can do anything, please read it slowly. And she actually was kind enough to come back to me. She said, "Thank you so much for suggesting," because I heard it. I felt it. It was an astonishing. It felt like an astonishing gift from her. And also from me. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And of course, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, the thing is, of course, that we're not one of the unfortunate things about our education system is that we're not taught the art of reading. We're not actually taught to read. We're taught to read books, but we're not taught how to read. And the thing is that every piece of writing contains within it, in the way it's written and structured, it contains within it instructions as to how you should read it.
Absolutely.
And people who want you to read them extremely slowly write in such a way that they slow down your reading.
Yes.
Just that we're not taught to be sensitive to these instructions. And anyway, maybe literature is the only form in which an instruction does not come with the experience itself. In music, when you go to hear a Beethoven symphony, the instruction has already been carried out by the conductor and by the players. And with painting, I still think that painting should be looked at very, very slowly. And maybe that's another medium in which
it's a really interesting idea that painting should be looked at slowly. Can you tell me a bit more about what you mean?
Well, you go to an exhibition with people, go see paintings with people, and you'll see straight away the people they go in nervously. They look at the paintings. Half the time they don't understand what it's about. Nobody understands what paintings are about. That's the whole point of it. They look at the labels. They look at the paintings for a couple of seconds. The painting doesn't speak to them as they expect it to. It doesn't jump out and announce and explain itself. Then they move on to the next painting. They've looked at the painting too quickly.
Yeah, we require things to happen too fast, I think, in so many different ways that are important. We require conversation to happen fast, for art to be taken in fast, for love to occur fast.
And we expect to understand one another. We expect to understand one another fast, when in fact, for each of us, it takes a lifetime to begin to understand ourselves.
Yeah,
I think it's the movement of the centuries. I think the 20th century was a century of speed. Things got accelerated with the 20th century with the development of air travel, airplanes, with the speed of cars and motorcycles. The 19th century was a century of bicycles and walking. The pace was different. You very rarely find a 19th century novel which was written to be read speedily. They're all written in the pace of their times. And we're living now in a time of exaggerated speed. Everything is conducted fast. We're meant to read books fast. We're meant to understand fast. We're meant to talk very fast. Music is done very fast. We listen to things very quickly. And I'm speeding up now just to sort of parody,
as a reflection. Yeah.
To parody what I'm talking about. And the consequence of that is that we live in a time of just perpetual misunderstanding. We don't understand what we read. We don't understand our conversations with one another. In our relationships, we don't understand because we expect to on these apps supposed to speed date. I mean, the whole idea of speed dating. Dating really should be slow. What is what I find all of this, it's the idea of our time, it's the speed of our time, but we need to reverse that. And all the things that are really important, we need to reverse the toxic speed trajectory of our times. We need to think slowly. We need to breathe a little slowly. We need to love slowly. We need to meet one another slowly and tentatively and gently. And I think it all comes down to, forgive my saying so, it all comes down to how we read.
How we read.
Because reading in some mysterious way is the core of many of our other encounters with the world.
And do you mean, when you say read, if I'm talking about reading as a core, does that go a little further back to storytelling and the way we experience story, or are you very specifically saying no, reading in particular, this is the core?
I think something changed in our cerebral cortex. Something changed in the way we encounter the different forms of narratives. Now, in storytelling, when a story is told to you, you do not control the pace at which you experience the story. The storyteller controls the pace. He or she comes in front of you and says, ladies and gentlemen, okay, I'm going to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a tortoise. This tortoise, he had 5 wings, he had 2 legs, he had, he or she is controlling the pace. You can't slow down your listening to a story. You can slow down your comprehension of it afterwards. But when storytelling moves from the performance to the reading of it on the page, a different part of our brain, a different part of our sensibility was called for. We're now dealing with an abstract sphere because words on the page, pure abstraction. With a storyteller, you can see them there as a living presence, and sometimes with the movement of their arms, they may actually refer to the things that they're telling stories about. With a lion, they might roar. You know what I'm saying. Whereas on the page, it's all flat, it's all black words on a white page, and we have to bring life and interpretation and meaning and living quality to those black marks that do not express themselves more than they do just on the page. There's no tone, there's no accent.
And yet it works. And yet it works. It's so magical, so special, and so astonishing that someone can be far away from us and break into laughter or crying because of these little, black squiggles on a white page. It's astonishing.
And it's because
it's astonishing.
It is astonishing, and it is because we have slowly retrained our brains to experience the storytelling experience through this abstract form that you're talking about, this squiggles on a page. I think in many ways the reading on a page is a more miraculous thing, because imagination has come into it, our sensibility has come into it, our capacity to give life and form to this thing that you're reading. It says, on the page it says a tree by the roadside, and you put a tree in your mind.
Yeah.
You put a nice roadside aside, and you think maybe that's not quite complete. You put a sun over there, you put a hot somewhere in the distance.
You put some orange some orange ribbons at the bottom and give them a particular sound. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. It's an astonishing thing to do for other people, and it's an astonishing thing to have done for us, I think. There's something about us talking about things being slow. And I think at some point you used the word gentle. We went on to something else, but the way that slow invites potentially gentle. I want to kind of go to another question I've got, because this is really about the ways that feelings are inspired within us, particularly in the context of Tiger work and climate change. One of the things you've said in Tiger work is both strength and beauty of spirit are required to draw attention to the spectre hanging over us, one that we live with as if it weren't there. Now, I think that's going back to the ways that we take in information and the way that we respond to information. And I'd love you to muse with me about something more about our collective psychology around climate change, because it feels to me that on one hand we have ignorance and damaging propaganda sometimes misinformation. And on the other, we have a lot of complex fear and feelings of overwhelm, feelings of denial, and I think most importantly, powerlessness. And these are, of course, all of my opinion. These are some of the things that you talk about in Tiger Work. Given all of these powerful emotions, given what we've already said about the importance of slowness and gentleness, taking our time, can you comment about the psychology that you see happening in front of you now in people's response to climate change, from denial to misinformation? Other things that may occur to you?
Well, with climate change, we're dealing with I think the single most important and possibly the single most terrifying prospect for the human race in 10, 15,000 years of being on this planet. We've never dealt with anything as global, as universal as this. Now, many of us spent a portion of our lives not being aware of it as such, or let's just say being aware of it, but in a very distant, very tangential, very unimportant sort of a way. Personally, I think it's a failure. It's our failure that's been the case. We should have been aware of it for the last 50 years because it's been with us much longer than that. But the hugeness of this prospect, that there is a possibility for the extinction of the species.
Yeah.
That it is not going to happen in a single dramatic event like a nuclear explosion.
Which is perhaps like something we could know more, we could feel that more somehow. Yes, yeah, coming towards us, let us do something about it.
Yeah, we would have an image for it. We'll have a simple
yes, exactly. Image. It will look like this. Yeah.
Yes. It will be one thing, it will blow us all up, and okay, that's what we have to deal with. Or there will be this asteroid coming from afar, and it will smash into the planet, and that's what we have to deal with. People can get that. But the climate crisis is so amorphous, it is diffuse, it's spread over different realms. It is sea, water, fire, earth, air. It doesn't lend itself to a single image. It doesn't lend itself to a single narrative. It doesn't lend itself to something that you can hold on to in any specific sense. And so it actually has, in that sense, the perfect permutation of the form of nightmare. Because with all true nightmares, you wake up and sometimes you don't know what it is that gave you the living daylights of fright.
Yeah,
something so big, something so horrible. What was it? You don't know, but it scared you absolutely out of your skin. And that's what climate is. It is huge. It is terrifying. It is a possibility of extinguishing of it, could bring about an extinction of life as we know it, and we dread it, and we don't want to face it for that reason, because we don't have a single image, and because it's so huge, we feel exactly as you said, powerless. And alongside that, we feel a constant buzz, a constant hum of a kind of profound existential anxiety.
Yes.
And if you're born beyond 20, 30 years ago, that anxiety is a permanent condition of your life. My daughter, who's going to be 7 years old, the climate change with the anxiety that goes with it is now a permanent part of her life.
Yeah. She has never not known this.
She has not known this. She's not known anything else. She was born right into this unstated, amorphous terror that is hanging over us. Sometimes I dread to use certain words when I'm talking to her about it, but I can't avoid it. She comes back from school one day and she says plastic. She comes back from school another day, she uses the word toxic. Another day she comes and she talks about acid rain. She comes back and it's just in the air. It is, so exactly as you say, we have so many complex, prehistoric, pre-millennial, post-industrial, post-structuralist feelings about this. So many of them that we can't even put names to them. They go beyond dread. And it's because it's a dread that we have never experienced or put a name to before.
It feels almost impossible. It feels both biblical, but more than biblical, because again, the Bible creates images that we can hold on to and say, right, I recognize that. Yeah.
The Bible is rich with images. Think about the 7 plagues, the plagues of flies and the plagues of boils and the plagues of you know, even the apocalypse, you know, full of images, terrifying images, rain of blood, horsemen of the apocalypse. You got images to deal with. With this, we have facts that come at us.
Yeah.
Suddenly, floods.
Yeah.
Earthquakes.
We have governments that we don't trust as well. Do you know what I mean? I don't think that that helps, that we have leaders who we don't trust, who speak of these things.
But yes, but the leaders themselves, when they speak of it with a complicated language, because they are themselves doing 2 or 3 things around this thing at the same time. They are contributing to it by the things that their governments are doing in encouraging oil exploration and spending. America, for example, spends vast millions still in oil exploration, while at the same time spending millions in trying to bring about renewables and so on and so forth. Yeah, exactly. It's a very divided, and I understand the complexity of it. You know, if one is really honest, and if one steps out of one's activist skin for a bit and becomes a novelist and looks at it, I understand why they're doing it, because, you know, most of the nations, most of us in our nations, do we really want our governments to suddenly put themselves into a position of vulnerability in relation to other governments who are pursuing their fossil fuel explorations and making vast amounts of money from it, and then we're putting ourselves in a weakened position in relation to that, and then beginning to suffer various forms of energy crisis and various forms of deprivation and various forms of a drop in our standards of living. Would we really vote those people in? So it's a very complex. On the one hand, we feel strongly that we change the world, but on the other hand, we don't want to change our lives. We don't want to change our form of transport. We don't want to give up our cars. We don't want to cut down our holidays. We don't want to cut down our buying of shirt and clothes and so on and so forth. We want to somehow keep those things while trying to do something about the planet. So even we as individuals, we too are conflicted and divided and quietly hypocritical about the complexity of these things. And I get that.
But it almost goes back to narrative again, Ben, because I feel this in myself as well, if I'm really truthful. Part of me is waiting for the cavalry to come, for someone else to do something, for some, you know, for the part of the narrative that means that we've got to climax, we make some kind of moral choice, and then everything's kind of okay. Now, of course, I don't consistently or consciously walk around saying to myself, I am in narrative expectation or denial. But as we speak, that occurs to me, you know, that's what I'm doing. I'm kind of waiting.
Yes.
I vary as well. One moment I'm thinking of things I can do to help. In another moment, I'm thinking about my art and what form, how that contributes in some way. And on another day, I'm buying a pretty frock to go out.
Yeah, and if we're really honest about it, and a good portion of the time, we just live in a fuzz of indifference. It's not a callous indifference. It's just of getting on with our everyday lives, you know. And I get that. And all of the things that you say, troubling though they are, and wonderful as well though they are exactly the human condition as we find ourselves at this point of the human narrative. And I think we're in the terminal part of the human narrative. We are, if we're not careful in the last chapter. We're not.
You talk.
But what fascinates me is if we're not careful in this last chapter, but we're living it as if we are in the first chapter.
Yes, I mean
that's fascinating. Troubling.
It is troubling and fascinating. And in Tiger work, there's one point. I'm going to really be truthful as well. As someone who grew up in Jamaica, I all the way through reading your book, I kept thinking of a phrase, a Jamaican phrase. I don't know if you've come across it, which is mothers tend to say this to children: if you can't hear, you will feel. If you cannot hear, you will feel. And when I read Letter to the Earth, essentially you're saying many things, of course, in your address to the earth, but one of the things that kept getting my attention, you were saying maybe you should bring things on quicker, harder, so that we can see something and feel something, because right now we're just dancing along. And the part of me, and I'm being really honest with you, Ben, part of me wants Of course, I don't want people to be hurt. But part of me wants something to happen in the middle of like New York, or I shouldn't even say that, or London or Paris, somewhere that people recognize that doesn't feel like that place over there.
It's over there, yeah.
And often that place over there with Black and brown people, or that place over there with poor people. And things are always happening over there. And so it makes it harder for us to see and feel this.
And even when it happens in Europe that you have affinity with, and because you've been there on holiday and you like the culture and the food, even when it is over there, Europe over there, it is still over there. That's that over there-ness of the climate disaster is a really problematic thing, because that over there-ness can, in real terms, extend to one's neighbor. In other words, it can happen in the next street. So long as it has not happened to you, we can still just about keep going on to the shops and keep halfway wanting to do something and halfway going to work and making our phone calls and doing our speed dating. So I'm just pulling that up as a constant gag.
Yes, I know, I get it. And I sympathize.
You know what I'm trying to say.
I do.
And that's the difficulty for us writers.
But this is why you're calling, I think, for, it feels to me, correct me if I'm wrong, that you are at least saying what's necessary here is a profound change in consciousness. A profound change in consciousness.
You couldn't have said it better, Leone. Yeah. Absolutely. A radical.
Talk to me more about this radical change in, especially because I'm like the girl in one of the stories in here. There's almost like it's the last couple in the world. They're not really, but they've come about and they're kind of falling in love. They're having an interesting and complex conversation about the nature of the universe, the nature of the world, how they will be together, and so on. And at one point, she calls at him to really be, I'm paraphrasing, of course, to be more concrete in his ideas. I'm a bit like her. Is there a concrete? Is there something that you see in your head that is a concrete way that we begin to change in this consciousness? Is there something we do? Am I being too controlling and thinking about it in a concrete way?
Well, you see, the thing is consciousness is one of those. Consciousness is one of those things that you can't do anything about in an external way. You can't grab somebody and shake them and say, radical consciousness. You just
now.
now.
Do it now.
Yeah, you cannot do it. All you can really do is you can make noises, you can write, you can protest, you can argue with people, you can live the example in your life. But as for the radical consciousness, I might go around the country reading these stories all the time, and people always say to me the same thing. What are we supposed to do if we don't feel it as urgently as you do? Right? That's the problem. It comes back to that. The consciousness is only something, the radicalness of the consciousness needed is something that people can only feel themselves. Unfortunately, as Sir Ben said somewhere, it's too bad, but suffering is about the only reliable awakener of the human spirit. Some people have a capacity to imagine ahead and say, no, we don't like this direction we're going. I can see where it's going. It's really terrible. If we carry on like this, it is really awful. And those floods is going to happen. I know people, they've lost their houses in parts of England. They had houses on the edge of the land. This slow erosion of global warming, and it's just, but nobody feels for them, because if they come and tell you about it again, it is over there.
But there, yeah.
It is over there.
Yeah.
So all we can do really is just add ingredients to the common consciousness that helps to awaken that radical consciousness, by which you can all act in a powerful way. The other thing we can do, of course, is make it impossible for governments to avoid the issue, even when they themselves don't really care about it or don't believe it to be real. We can force them, compel them, and say, if you want to be in power,
you have to have this on your agenda.
You have to have this on your agenda. We know you don't really give a damn about it.
You have
we know you don't believe it. We know you've got a bunker somewhere, so it's not really going to affect you. But if you want to stay in power, you have to do this for the rest of the human race, or at least this portion of the human race that we're part of, and that we can hold you accountable about. The other thing we can do, of course, is in our daily lives, you know, little things. Solar panels helps, just reduction. Reduction on the amount of energy being wastefully consumed. I think reducing our carbon footprints as much as we can. I've cut down on flying. I now, if there's any way I can get to by train, camel, boat, canoe,
pigeon.
I would take any of those. If there's places I can only get to by flight, I will go only if it's important. Yeah. And I think anyway, it's happening that way by itself, because most of the places that we like to go to, there've been fires there. So you see the newspapers now begin to say that in 5-10 years time, people are going to be having their holidays in Wales, and they're not going to be flying to Spain or to Greece anymore, because over there is slowly coming here.
Can I move us back to the art and the experience of making art? It was really interesting to me to read about your feelings about existential creativity, is what you're calling it. And this existential creativity having to do with creativity at the end of time, that nothing should be wasted, of course, is an interesting metaphor for the time. And I'll quote you on this one. It says, "It means everything I write should draw attention to the dire position we're in as a species. It means that the writing must have no frills. It also means that I must write now as if these are the last things I will write." And you ask some interesting questions that, as a writer, I responded to. If you knew you were at the last days of the human story, what would you write? How would you write? What would your aesthetics be? Now, I know that's an invitation to creativity and action, because, of course, limits actually make us more creative. But I'm going to ask a question that it just kept occurring to me, so I'm going to get it out of the way. I thought, does this now, as an artist, condemn me to a kind of no-frills dystopian echo lit forever? As I have to.
No, no, at no point did I say it had to be echo lit.
You did not say that at all. I'm kind of a tease as well. But
yes, I know.
Reassure me, please.
Yeah, no. No, not at all. It just is, again, it goes back to the phrase that you yourself raised about a profound change in consciousness. It goes back to the radical consciousness that we expect of people in our age in order to come through this, and we will come through it. We will come through it because we have to. I want to say that really straight off. We absolutely have to, and so we will, because we bloody well have to.
That makes me want to cry, Ben. Really? Because
yes,
we will?
Because we have to. Because we have to. If it's going to take us to the last moment and then suddenly we start to chuck televisions and out of our windows, and if it's going to take us to the last moment, we will, when we get it,
yeah,
we will. That's all we need for us human beings, because we're not stupid. And we have this kind of a genius to our species. It's kind of a genius to human beings, a genius for stupidity and for cruelty and injustice. But there's also a genius for change and transformation and getting it done when we really need to do it. You know, all you need to do is look at the positive side of history. And there's a lot of evidence of us being able to do that. Why should we writers not also write from this radical consciousness? Why should we bring a radical consciousness to life and then deny it to
ourselves? Yeah.
Out of which the writing comes. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. And anyway, if you look at a lot of the writing that was done in times of crisis, in times of big crisis, you find that there's always a profound change of aesthetics. It's not for nothing that existentialism came out of the Second World War, which is one of the direst and most horrible periods in modern history, certainly in the Western world, where when people discovered what's happened to the Jews, when people discovered the ferocity of the wars, people suddenly found themselves having to think about human life, and there are
completely different way. Yeah,
differently. It just happens. You know, go look at places where there's been famine. The art created during the time of famine. No one during the time of famine is going to be creating an elaborate you don't have the strength for it, for one thing. And it's just morally inappropriate. The art comes out of our relationship to the truth of our times. That doesn't mean that when I say that doesn't mean that one can't be rich and beautiful. I'm just thinking about economy. I'm thinking about here we are. Let's say like the characters you talk about in that story, you sense that, you've heard floods over here, fires over there, it's happening next door, this is that, and you want to sit down and write. And you want to write the last things. Is there time really to sort of enjoy the the long, sumptuous beauties and permutations of...
I'm a long, sumptuous beauty kind of gal.
I know.
And I know how concerned you are with the uncluttered, the specific, the abridgment, the simplification.
No, but if your situation changes, if you, for example, knew you were going to die, for heaven forbid, that's not going to happen to you for another 70 years. But if you know that, things are going to end for you tomorrow, you'll either have to do one very short, sumptuous sentence, and that's it.
Yeah, or that's it, or a quick poem. Or fair enough. Yeah.
Or you're going to say, instead of that long sumptuousness, I'm going to try and say as much of the truth that I have known and lived and seen and distilled as I can in this short time that is left to me. It's entirely your choice. You can leave on your sumptuous sentence, or you can just...
Interesting question, because part of me wants that one sumptuous sentence then, because I think that would also speak the truth.
Well, it will speak.
If it was my truth, you know what I mean? If my last hurrah is that last gorgeous, never-ending sentence that almost it's still going while I die, right?
Yes,
that's the truth, right?
That, Leone, is the economy of your spirit.
I know.
because it's the truth of your spirit. Yes. And that's what I meant by economy there. I didn't mean that everything had to be lean and dry. I just meant that it had to be the truth of your spirit. It has
to know what it's for.
It has to know what it's for.
Regardless of what the style is, it has to know what it's for and what it's saying.
And what it is breathing.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And it comes back down to radical consciousness. Again, we have to make a choice. It becomes a choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
A conscious choice.
You said that in an interview in the New York Times, you said of Mirabella, your daughter, as you say, she's 7 now. I think she was 6 at the time. She said you said she's compelled you to distill even more. Can you remember what you said, or what you meant by that? Why she's making you distill even more?
Distill, yes, distill language, distill thought, distill time. Yes. Yes. You look at her. She's 7, and you think to yourself, "Oh my God, I'm passing on to her part of my not being responsible enough about this world in which we live. I'm part of what she has to deal with. Yeah. My generation, we've not done enough. We've been facing this and facing that, but some of the key things that we need to face, we've not been and they have to face
other
more
things. There've been so many other things to do as well.
Yeah, but if your house burning, if your house is on fire, there are many other things to sort out. There are bills to pay. There's that corner of the room that you wanted to clean. There's that part of the place you wanted to sort out. There's your libraries. There's so many wonderful, beautiful things. Some things to do with justice. But suddenly all of that changes in importance purely because you have to do right now the most important thing, without which all the other things can't really be done. And we needed to have shifted.
Yeah.
We needed to shift to that area of focus a while back. We just needed to.
I suppose I go back to Mirabella only because I've seen you interviewed about her several times, or she's come up in conversation naturally several times. And I just love that you love her so much. And I mean, obviously you do, you're her daddy, right? But she sounds great as well. She sounds like this magnificent little person and obviously you are biased, but she also just sounds objectively great. What else is she teaching you besides distillation? And she sounds like a little bit of guilt. What else is she teaching you?
Well, she's teaching me. She's teaching me everything. She's correcting my mythology. Annoyingly, she loves reading. She's thrown herself into the world of mythology, all mythology, Greek, Indian. You know, so when I begin to, you know, make a wrong, say Prometheus, when I mean, but she's on it. So she's compelled me to to reread and to be, you know, as you get older, you sort of you have all this knowledge that you've acquired over the years, and a lot of it sits in your head in a comfortable way, and you wear it comfortably, but not rigorously enough, because you've been carrying it all these years. Why do you have to be rigorous as you need to be in the early years when you were learning the exact details and the exact relations? So a little bit of that rigor sort of kind of relaxes. She's brought that rigor. She's brought that rigor back.
Wow, that's an amazing gift to remind you of the necessity for rigor, because she wants answers to questions, I assume. She expects you to get them right as her father.
Well, she's waiting for me to get it wrong so she can answer.
Okay, Mirabella, we love you. Slight change of subject because I've got my eye on the time. And again, a question I've just always wanted to ask you, really. You've said in many places that first you're a poet. Is that still true? And tell me why. Because you play with so many forms so well. You take so many forms so seriously, with all of the study and all of the time and all of the rigor that implies. And yet for you, is it still poetry? Is that the heart? Is that still the core?
It's very kind of you to say that, Leone, but you know, the rigor that I bring to all of the forms comes from poetry itself. Yeah. It's not just poetry as words on the page, it's the spirit of poetry that's at the back of all of it. And what is the spirit of poetry? It's not just the relations between things. It's not just image and meter. It's a constant awareness of the way in which, and I'm not looking in a funny way when I'm doing this. I'm looking at things around me. It's a constant awareness of how things are both absolutely distinctly what they are in terms of their form. The form of things is so astounding.
Oh, you are such a poet. That is such a poet sentence.
how they affect our consciousness, and that leaks everything. Whether it's the short story, whether it's the novel, whether it's the play, whether that's the root of it. That for me is the key. It's like poetry is the key to the universe. Certainly the key to my universe as I experience it through language, and through form. It's even affected the way I tell stories.
Yeah,
you know, of course. You know, when I was much younger, you tell stories in the way that you kind of inherited it. Yep. You know, there was once a tortoise. You know, now I can't do that.
There was once a tortoise, always a tortoise.
Always once a tortoise. But in Jamaica, it's the rabbit. It's Brer Rabbit.
It's Brer Rabbit, or it's Spider-Man as well.
It's Spider. Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah, which of course we're stealing from Nigeria, as far as I know. But yeah, you know.
Yeah, I think spider walk all over the world. No.
Yeah, of course, of course. Yeah,
spider, amazing. The spider, the way the spiders got about. Yeah, we should. Another conversation we'll have in the future is spiders and poetry.
That sounds like a very good essay to write. There's another thing that you said that I actually have. I occasionally take it out and look at it because again, this interview's turned out in some ways to be all about me, but I'm going to continue on that vein. Because you have inspired me and helped me as an artist and as a human for so many years, Ben. This is absolutely true. There's one thing I always look at. It's from your 2014 essay collection, A Way of Being Free, which says so many wonderful things about being an artist and a writer. But this is my favorite quote from there. Do not disdain the idle, strange, ordinary, nonsensical, or shocking thoughts which the mind throws up. Hold them, look at them, play with them, see where they lead. I love that sense of playfulness, which beside your rigor and your attention to form, your attention to clarity, there's always that sense of the mischief hanging around. It must be something that you're conscious of, this importance of play in your own work.
Oh yeah, take the play away. What's the point, Leone?
None.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just like architecture, right?
I mean, you know, what is it that kindles the spirit more? What is it that your eyes suddenly start to shine as you're, what is it? It's not just those so-called powerful sentences. And anyway, those so-called powerful sentences have inside their power the sense of play and risk and daring and wildness, and can I get away with this? And am I allowed to do this? And will I not be drummed out of town for doing this? But now I'm going to put this combination together. Whoa, it is, I mean, people underestimate the mysterious power of play, really, because I think play is so deeply aligned to how the mind works in its creative mode.
It asks me to be brave. I always think, is this amusing me? Is this making, even if it's a very, you know, important or interesting or serious subject that I'm dealing with, I still, in the back of my head, need a certain amount of amusement to it. As kind of, it must tickle me.
It must delight.
What allows me to say it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
It gives you.
And too much gravity is the death of creativity.
Yes,
it's a death. You know, every time I hear people talk about a really great book, and you go to it, I always expect to meet somebody in a stiff suit.
Yes,
you know,
ready to opine upon us.
Exactly. But you read it, you're surprised to find the rather silly, wonderful, playful, tentative, and bold person, a real human being. It's always a shock.
Yeah, but always so necessary, or they wouldn't be creating great works.
And they wouldn't still be with us, you know, because it's not the serious things that carries through time. Finally, I think it's the secretly playful, surprising, and even if you look at a work as deadly as Oedipus Rex, one of the greatest plays ever written, one of the greatest tragedies. Inside it is an incredible sense of mischief. I mean, what kind of mind?
Yeah.
What kind of mind would devise the possibility that the hero of the story will set out into the world with a prophecy, and would have a quarrel with somebody on the street, and then find this woman and find her really beautiful and woo her and seduce her and marry her.
Mm-hmm. And then, yes, it's wonderful. It's wonderful, necessary, completely.
Incredible tragedy and profound, the most profound mischief at the same time.
At the same time, yes.
Like Destiny.
Start there. It must have started with a chuckle, with a because that's the way the ideas come. Even if we're talking about serious things, there must even been points in our Tiger work. It's such a beautiful little book in Tiger work where you thought, "Ooh, may I? Will I? Shall I do that?" And it's the same feeling of mischief and power and energy that come with that.
Yeah, and I think it's the boy saying, "Can I climb over that fence?"
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Can I get away with it?
Yeah. With me, it's the little girl in me who wants to tickle people. It's that part.
Yes, I know. I've always known that about you.
I am going to finish off with a little bit more mischief, if you will let me.
Yes, I was going to finish off by doing a little bit of reading as well.
Do that, and then I'll ask.
I think we should leave your Mischief for last, and I'll do a little bit of reading. Yes.
Do the reading.
Yes, please. I'm going to read a little something from a poem called "The Devil's Fuel," or "I Sing the Dawn of Bright, Fresh Energy." And I'm just going to read at random. I've not prepared this. I've not planned this. I'm just going to read at random. A stone can give the light of stars. A seed can feed hamlets. A thought can raise humanity out of its self-destroying age. For the age of fossil fuels, empires, and inequalities is dead. Let the dead dream the dead. Save the future, heal the present, freshen the air. Let the fishes breed in peace. In the oceans, let the rivers flow unpolluted with mercury, with oil slicks, with slag and poisons from industries. Let the earth breathe and the topsoil be rich again, free from fertilizers that make plants grow beyond their normal speed and form, no longer force feed pigs and chickens and cows. Let's give our lungs pure air to breathe. Why are exhaust pipes of cars at the level of children? So they breathe in directly those fresh, murderous gases and no longer torture our bodies with treacherous chemicals in food we eat and ambiguous fluorides in our drinking water. I miss the old clean taste of oranges. I miss breathing air without fumes.
Thank you. Yeah. Lovely and terrifying, which feels like in some ways it sums up this book. I'm going to do my mischief now, if I have your permission.
Yes, please.
A couple of quick-fire questions that I
Oh my goodness, quick-fire questions. Okay, let's do it.
I like them, and I'm going to do it anyway. Let's see how you respond. So, let's see. First one, which I really want to know. What's your favorite word, Ben?
Tranquility.
What's your favorite sound?
Breathing in sleep.
And if you had to choose between dancing or singing, which would
Dancing.
Dancing. Morning or evening?
When I was younger, it was evening. Now morning.
Your favorite meal or cuisine?
Pounded yam with edikaiko and yeah, which is a kind of rich vegetable stew that they have in southern Nigeria. I'm really hungry. That's what I want to eat.
That didn't help.
Or if that's not there, jollof plantain and nice fried egg.
Dark plantain or light plantain?
When Nigerian plantain, we don't have that difference.
No.
Oh, you mean ripe?
I mean, really ripe or really underripe? Yeah.
Oh no. I like it in the middle.
You like it in the middle?
Yes, in the middle when it's just yellow.
Okay. Yes, me too.
You?
Me too. I don't like it too sweet. I don't like it too green. What makes you joyful, Ben?
Play with friends, with family.
Yes.
With the world.
Lovely. Coming to an end. If you're stuck on an abandoned island, yourself, only you, one book, you have to read Toni Morrison forever or James Baldwin forever. Which do you choose?
Oh my God! You said one book, but you gave two authors. You gave authors with lots of books. So you have to choose.
Oh God. Toni Morrison. Okay, your favorites. Your favorite Toni Morrison or your favorite James Baldwin?
That's so unfair.
I know.
Because my favorite Toni Morrison is Song of Solomon.
Yes, mine too.
Everybody else preferred Beloved. I
love Song of Solomon. Yes.
Solomon is lovely. Song of Solomon is lovely. And my favorite Baldwin, Notes of a Native Son.
Okay.
I like his. I love his novels. I love Giovanni's Room, but those essays. They will speak to empires long after we're no longer here.
Baldwin you choose or Morrison?
It's not fair.
I know, but you must choose.
I'll choose James Morrison or Tony Baldwin.
You are a mischief maker. I'll let you have that one. What is the book by your bed right now?
Many.
I knew you were going to say that. How did I know that? I am going to thank you for your time, Sir Okri. I'm going to end by saying thank you also to Fane Online and the audience for watching us and hopefully laughing with us. And you made me a little tearful, so perhaps we've had people tearful.
Leone. And I want to thank you for being here, Leone. Thank you for such a wonderful conversation.
Oh, it's been a wonderful conversation.
And I think our conversation answers the question that you asked at the beginning by itself.
Yeah. And no one else here will ever know what we're talking about. We now have a secret, which is delicious. I urge the audience to get a copy of Tiger Work by Ben Okri from any trusted retailer if you haven't had it already. It is beautiful writing. It is necessary thinking, and it is a call to action. Thank you again for spending this time with me, Ben. Really, really blessed and appreciate it.
Bless you, Leon.
Thank you.
Bless you with the richness of your sentences and your mischief.
Thank you.